Hey, thought I'd pop on completely unannounced. No, don't put an event out or anything, and just go live on three different places. And I'm hoping that people will watch this either now, which would be great, and get interactive, or in the future. But I've been doing this stuff, and I wanted to get it out to you, and uh, I wanted to try doing it a little ad hoc like this. So today, what I want to talk about, I've been doing a ton with chatbots and AI, obviously. And what I want to share with you is a better way of doing data access for your chatbots. So, you know, people are creating these custom GPTs and they're using chatbot software and they're putting chatbots into this and into that. And they're getting a lot of recognition. So, what I want to do is for the people that aren't completely familiar, if you're very familiar, just bear with me for like 5 minutes as I just kind of show the basics of kind of what happens here. Let me share my screen. And I want to show you. This is a custom GPT that I created. Let me just verify something here. Yeah. So with a custom GPT, you're basically wrapping ChatGPT into your own thoughts, whatever you want to put in there for data. And I created one called Gimme Air Quality. Gimme being my company, Gimme Info. I tend to put a prefix on there, Gimme. So this is just air quality information. When you go down and you're actually going to create a GPT, you're going to usually load up files, or you're going to point to some third-party data, right? You have to have some data to work with. The thought is you're going to take that data, you're going to have ChatGPT look at it, figure out what's being said there, what's the context, and then you're going to chat with it. And so you're expecting ChatGPT to be able to understand the context of the question, understand the context of the data, put them together, and come out with something great. Now, if you, I hear you laughing. I do. I hear you laughing. You people that are just sitting there waiting 5 minutes while I tell everybody else about this. The thing is, this custom GPT stuff is very cool, but Chat GPT, as we've all seen in various ways, it's not perfect. It doesn't come up with the best always. So you have to, rework your prompts. And so you see a lot of stuff on LinkedIn of people saying, here's how you prompt better. So what I want you to look at is over on the left-hand side, I didn't upload any files. I have an action. So these actions are, hey, I'd like to go over here and grab some data. And I have this one that I've created. It's just an API, which is just a programming interface, which means programmatically I can put something into a website and get some raw data back. And then, ChatGPT will look at the raw data and go, oh, I know what this is based on what Greg has told me is coming back. So when you look at the construct, it says, hey, here's all this geek stuff that you have to know about. Or someone like me can create it for you. And basically, it says, I'm going to go over there, wherever over there is. It could be Yahoo Finance. In my case, I'm going out to a plugin piece that I have out there in the web. And it pulls air quality, gives you an air quality forecast. And so it says, hey, here's the kind of stuff you can get back. And here's what's in those pieces. It has the date, it has the area for the reporting, has a state code, has an index. And so you're basically telling ChatGPT what's coming back. So here's something that you have to think about if you're building these things, is there is a kind of a code component to it, right? If you're just going to upload some documents, that's fine, but your results are going to be just fine. If you're going to go against third-party data, well, you have to give ChatGPT enough information to know where it is, what's coming back, and what those pieces are that are coming back. Because then it can say, oh, you have a state code. I can take a state code and ME becomes Maine. I can talk about Maine, even though the data said ME. So there's this understanding that ChatGPT has to have to translate what I'm saying is coming back here in the configuration to what it's actually going to say. So if I say, over here, what is today's air quality at Stephen King's house? Stephen King, the author, lives in Bangor, Maine. He lives about 2 miles that way from me. And I'm in Bangor. And ChatGPT can look at the question, figure out the context, says, oh, Stephen King's house. We know he has another house. I think it's in Florida. But basically, the house everyone talks about is in Bangor. It's got, if you ever get to Bangor, you got to see it. It's great. It lets you drive up to the house, and there's gates with bats on them. And anyway, it's a cool little place, big place. But anyway, I hit enter, and ChatGPT is going to say, oh, yeah. And so it says it can't do it at the exact residence, but I can give you the air quality for Bangor. So notice that it's have it on debug mode. So it's telling me that it's calling stuff back. It's info being sent out there to that website. I'm going to allow it. So it says, hey, I'm talking to this plugin now, which is my stuff over there. It's going to talk to it, come back with information. It takes the raw data that came back. Let's just show that raw data here. Oops, it doesn't have the details. But basically, it came back with information about being fine. Everything's green flagged. And then it just adds in its own flavor to it, because that's how I built this chat GPT, this custom GPT, to be a little, fun with its wording and things like that. So great. I got some good information. It came back, it did its thing. What happens then when you want more data from like your own stuff, or stuff that isn't as, secondary? Like this is secondary. Like the air quality information is like, it's good, it's not good. There's not a lot to it. And so this thing can take that information and wrap it in all this nice, fun wording about Stephen King's, area and spookiness and macabre and all that. So when you're doing your thing and you want to create a custom GPT, what's happening here is what's going to happen with your stuff. I'm going to stop sharing this screen and share something else with you. Let me share whiteboard. Okay, put it right here. Okay. Over here is you and your chatbot. It's going to see chatbot, CB. The chatbot has for its data, some of its data, right? Something called an LLM. And an LLM is a large language model. I'm not going to go into the depth of that. I don't want to bore you to tears with that. But what it comes down to is ChatGPT is an app. It's a chatbot that sits on top of the LLM called GPT. And it's either 4 or 3.5, or there's some various flavors of that. The LLM is what gives you, it's the engine, it's what gives you the AI. It receives input, figures out what to do with it, gives back output. Now, in the case of GPT, it's what's called a text completion engine, and it basically says, I can tell you what the next word is in the sentence. So all of that cool generation that's happening is just this immense amount of calculation of what's the chances of the next word in a sentence type of thing. And it has a whole ton of data that it's working from, that it's grabbed from the internet and from our interacting with it, etc. So it's figuring out what is most likely to be what someone is looking for. Great. So that's why you got all this stuff about Stephen King's house and the Bangor area and the fun wording, and all that was just basically the model doing its thing. So what we've had is ChatGPT and others pointing directly at a language model. You give it input. The chatbot sends it over to the LLM. The LLM does its thing and returns back a result. Again, you get mixed results. Now with the custom GPT, what that means is there's another set of data. And this, I'm just going to put a Y. It's your data. And so what happens is the chatbot figures out, I got to go here first. If you remember what it said, remember that whole thing was allowing access to this to go out and do this plugin. It says, oh, your data's out in the plugin. Yeah, I'll go down this path down here to the plugin. This is the plugin. And then return back that data to you. Then you now have additional context that you can throw at the LLM. And the LLM says, oh, I can do whatever I want with that. That's cool. I can do stuff with that. What that tends to be is something called RAG. Let me get this right. Retrieval-Augmented Generation, I believe is what it means. And all it means is that you're going to generate an LLM result, some chatbot type result, based on augmented context. So you have your prompt, and then you need additional data to kind of come into play because data can change over time. You want live, real-time data, you're going to need to grab it right at that moment. So you have your prompt, you have the data, put them together, and then it can go down to the LLM, do its thing, and come back, which is basically what we did here. This is a basic RAG concept, and we went against my third-party API that had current air quality information. That's great. This is the norm. This is where everybody's heading right now. And what you're seeing is a whole, pardon my language, but a shit ton of these custom GPTs that are coming out there. They're actually going to, OpenAI is coming out with a store so that people can purchase these things because somebody has thought, hey, if we could augment ChatGPT with information about resumes or about getting financial data or options trading or whatever, then it becomes very easy to create a custom GPT that's kind of dialed in because you're getting the context first and then bringing over the LLM. So one of the other things, I'm not going to write the whole word out because I can't write well with a mouse, is that's fine tuning, FT. Fine tuning is another concept that you'll hear. And what that does, it says, well, I don't want to have to keep going back out to this data set, coming back with the same data all the time if it's not real-time data. If it's just data sitting there, I want to be able to make it part of my language. It's so ingrained in what my business does. So what they do is they then add data to the LLM and create their own custom LLM. So you take the large language model that knows all of the stuff that ChatGPT knows, right? And then you fine tune it with your specific stuff. It can be financial documents, it can be your SOPs, it can be other things. And this is the avenue that was a lot of people were taking at first because these custom GPTs weren't available yet. This whole arm right here was not even available. So you had no choice but to fine tune. Now this arm is available, and it makes it so you don't have to fine tune. You can grab, real time. Now there's a point to all this, and it's not just to inform you. I want to share something with you because even this is going to fall short. Let me show you why. The LLM, when it's fine-tuned, is great. It's just difficult. Fine-tuning an LLM is a costly, non-exact science. A lot of the LLMs are not made for good fine-tuning. And you'll see that if you go to something like huggingface.co, huggingface.co has last time I checked, it was over 300,000. They probably have closer to 500,000 now, I would think. Different models, right? GPT is just one of them. They're all fine-tuned for specific jobs. So they're these small niche kind of models that work really well for specific things. I think that's going to be very helpful. But then you can still create this arm over here for augmenting that with real-time data. The problem is. And this is where I want you to see this. All of that, it was longer than 5 minutes. I apologize, but it wasn't bad. You can next level your chatbot very easily. Let me show you something that hasn't really been talked about yet. If you have an LLM and you have this real-time stuff happening, you're getting back a certain set of results. Who's doing the translating? Not you. You're getting back the results of the LLM. Remember that this right here is before it goes to the LLM, before it goes to ChatGPT. It's simply grabbing real-time data to have context around your prompt. So your prompt can say, hey, I got a stock. How's it doing? Current price, $325. Yesterday's price, $322. Right? So you have this data that comes back and gets tied into the prompt. It gets sent over to the LLM. The primary place, let's see if I can do this. The primary place of action is actually right there where I've highlighted it. The chatbot, whether it's ChatGPT or your own, going to the LLM and figuring out what answer to give back to you. It has real-time data now, but it totally depends on your prompt. It totally depends on what the LLM model sees in your prompt and the data that you sent. So in my case, I have a decent little prompt that talks about how to have good, fun conversation about air quality, of all things. And it came back with a decent result about Stephen King. I could run that over and over and over and over, and each time I will get a different result. It's not the ARM data, it's not the live data that's causing the different result. It's the language model. It says, oh, I got this stuff. Let me come up with an answer for you. Here you go. Next time I run it, oh, I got this stuff. Let me figure out an answer. I'll give it back to you. So it's different every time. It's like it's seeing it for the first time. All of the answer that's coming back is from the LLM. Crappy LLM, crappy result. Crappy prompt with a good LLM, crappy result. You need to have a decent prompt with a decent LLM to have any kind of good play there for you to use. And there's plenty of that out there. I'm not saying any of it's, nasty. I'm not going to go there. But what I want you to understand is you're relying on the LLM. You could have a super good prompt, best prompt. If the LLM takes it and goes, I don't know what to do with air quality. I don't know what to do with your prompt. I'll give him something and gives you back something. You're going to be really frustrated with the result because you're relying on the LLM. So let me throw this at you. In the case of air quality, we took from an air quality thing and came back with raw data, spreadsheet data. It literally was, if you were to look at that data, it looks like a spreadsheet. It just has values and headers. No context. It just, here's the raw data. The context is figured out by the chatbot. What if I came back with better data? Remember, the prompt could be excellent. If the raw data coming in is hard to figure out, well, the LLM is going to try to figure it out, and it's going to have a hard time with it. What if I gave it better text coming back? So I want you to check this out. Here's long-winded Greg figuring out how to communicate this to you well. I want you to consider this part right here to have an additional piece. What if, I wish I could type this faster. Someday I'll get the hang of this. What if I said I want air quality data, which I then got the spreadsheet data, and then I ran that through GPT and came back with text? What if I came back with meaningful text? ChatGPT and other language models, GPT and other language models, like through ChatGPT, you have to go to GPT-4, and then you have to check off. There's like code interpreter and file retriever. That's because the language model itself doesn't work well with table information. It doesn't work well with raw data. It doesn't, in many cases, know what to do with it. It says, I'm text. I'm a text completion engine, for crap's sake. I don't know what to do with this, and so I'm going to try to figure it out the best I can. And you get mediocre results sometimes. So instead of giving it table data and having to work through these extra pieces that OpenAI provides, you can do the work and come back with information that goes into a prompt that's straight up text. It looks just like the prompt. The LLM has a very easy time understanding it, absorbing it, figuring out the context, because you've given all the context, you've given all the data, but in a contextual way. So here's an example. Let's talk about the weather. You could say to me, Greg, what's the weather like in Bangor? I could look outside and I could say, there's some snow on the ground. It's 32 degrees. It's cold. The wind's coming from wherever at this speed. It's this light out. The sun's this part of the sky. It can be just data. You would understand it to some extent and go, oh, sounds kind of cold. Sounds kind of pretty. What if I came back to you when you said, Greg, what's the weather like in Bangor? And I said to you, it's a beautiful, crisp day. There's 4 inches of fresh powder on the ground. The roads are clear. Everyone's excited about the holiday coming up. It's just a nice day to be out. Well, I've given you all the context. I've given you the data. I've given you the context. Your brain goes, I actually put a visual to that. I know what Greg's talking about exactly because he gave me enough information. I don't need to think about it. I don't need to kind of put together, well, is 32 degrees cold for Greg, or is it, it's cold for somebody who's used to Arizona, but is it cold for Greg? You have to figure these things out. So what you do is instead run the arm through GPT, come back with text that makes sense so that the LLM then has just straight text when it gets to this part right here. Get what I'm saying? Get where I'm saying? Get what I'm saying? I want you to think about that for a second. You can still go after third-party data, and it can still be real time, but instead of coming back with raw data, which most APIs do, right? Think about it. If you're going to contact Yahoo Finance, if you're going to contact the Weather Channel, if you're going to contact Amazon, pick some place that you want to grab data from. Airline information, weather, stocks, sports. It's raw data. It's ticker symbol. It's just data. So take that data and run it through GPT first and return that back, because you know what the person's trying to get to. You know the context they're trying to have. And so that's what I've been building. That's why you saw my plugin part and why my result is actually kind of decent, is because I don't just come back with raw data. I come back with text. I come back with context. Using this successfully with a guy who's doing fantasy football stuff. He has a spreadsheet of raw data and it does have some text, some context about each player. The guy does an incredible amount of research, fantastic job, really helpful stuff, has great profile information, and all we're doing is exposing it through a chatbot. The chatbot would normally just go hit his spreadsheet, but then it has to figure out what the pieces are. What column, what sheet, what person. There's a lot of data there. Do I need all that data? Some of it's just what the team's doing this week. The player part is like 1/3 of the text that he puts in there for each player. So what I do instead is create my own API that hits the spreadsheet, pulls the data back, and then runs it through GPT for context. So now it gets a feel to it, and now you return that feel back to the chatbot, which can then combine it. So let me give you a better example. I want to compare two players. I want the chatbot to say, you should sit this player out and you should play this player instead. And that's what happens with fantasy football, right? You're looking at something and going, um, I don't know. I like both these players. These guys are playing a better team this week, but this guy's been playing better lately. I'm not sure who I should actually play on my team. One of them has to play, one of them has to sit. So the comparison is usually done by looking at the raw data, and you look at the other raw data and you go, I guess this one. But sometimes you don't have the whole context. So what we do, in my case, is I say, who are you looking for? And I go get that one person's profile, I hold it. Who else are you looking for? I go and get that person's profile and I hold it behind the scenes. I then run them both through GPT to come back with a field, right? Send that back to the chatbot, which then has a prompt that it works with. It says, here's the field, here's the prompt. It runs that through ChatGPT and comes back with the result. So instead of going, chatbot, raw data, you figure it out, it's chatbot, raw data, I figure it out because I know what they're looking for from that raw data. Come back with text instead, figure it out. Just so much easier, way easier. And it takes such a little amount of effort. Let me throw this out your way. What I'm creating are called data grabs. It's just an easy way of hitting APIs. All this stuff that we were looking at with ChatGPT, let me get rid of this for a second here. All the stuff that we were talking about with ChatGPT and the APIs that you hit. When you have to hit an API, you got to tell ChatGPT all that gobbledygook that goes in the configuration of the custom GPT. It says where I'm going, what's the inputs, what's the outputs, what is it, string, is it all the stuff it's code oriented, and you need someone who's a developer to help you figure that out. Instead, what you do is you hit my thing, which is called a data grab, and it's very straightforward. They all kind of have the same feel to them, and I provide you with a cut and paste that you can literally just take, put into a custom GPT, and now you're hitting that data. And I have hooks for all kinds of data, and that's growing on an almost daily basis. But the fantasy football is a good example of one. I have just one URL that you hit for the whole thing. Whether it's one player or two players, you're going to hit this one thing and tell it part of a name, and it will go to the data. It knows how to go to a spreadsheet, figure out that data, come back, get text, and throw the text back to whoever's asking. So it makes it really, really easy. You wrap the really complex API code-oriented baloney with a very easy to understand URL. It's an API, and then it just says like slash whatever the category is, slash the subcategory, slash your parameters. So like fantasy sports slash football slash player slash and then the player's name. I mean, it's really, really easy to do, easy to put them together, and you then have control. You let me figure out how to connect to the raw data API and how to take that information back and give it to you. And then you tell me, I'd like you to run that through GPT, or I just want the raw data, or I just want these two fields out of the 1,000 that the API comes back with, right? You have control. And that's the beauty of it, is that you can then take that raw controlled data through GPT and come back with some text, and then you give that to the chatbots. I know it's kind of a fire hose of information, but what I want you to look at, again, just to summarize and end this, is just to say, right now, well, at the beginning, chatbots were hitting an LLM. That's it. Then they said, well, we could fine tune the LLM to make them better. And you're still just hitting that. Now they're saying, oh, we can get real time data and bring that into the prompt and then go to the LLM or the fine tuned LLM and we'll get stuff back. So they're expanding how these things are being used. I'm looking at it and saying, I like this expansion of going out to real time data or custom data. But I'd like to be able to have a little control over it and do something with it first before GPT sees it. So GPT calls my thing, I go get the data, and then I actually run it back through GPT first, and then bring it back. It makes for much, much better results. It will definitely next level your chatbots. If you're building custom GPTs, you're building chatbots, I use VoiceFlow. What a great program that's been. It has a whole flow of things through. Actually, I can show you really quickly. Right here. So here's a flow of that fantasy football chatbot. And what you have is all of this stuff. Which player would you like? You capture that information, and then it calls my data grab right here. And then it comes back with a result. And I force fed certain things to coming back, saying I even will say the player's not found, or there's multiple matches, they weren't clear enough. And then you can take it over. And then look, once you get it correct, it goes into a prompt. The data that comes back then goes into a prompt, which goes back to ChatGPT. So that is really what I wanted to show you here. Oops. Is that there's some really cool stuff that you can do. You have more control over the data. You can make it your results way better, way, way better than if you just went again. If I went against the spreadsheet of raw data, which I did do at first, of course, the results just were not there. As soon as I put my data grab over the top and started to manipulate and control it myself first, sending it back through GPT even, way, way better. Consistent, great results. Very happy with the results. And I'm happy to share that with you. I'm happy to help you build stuff out. I'm going to be doing more workshop-oriented things. I'm going to be doing a few more talks like this. Let me know what you like and don't like about this kind of a talk. Let me know what more you'd want to see, what things I can talk about. I try to keep things really practical in AI, and I know this one goes one step beyond and goes into coding. That's what I do. I do a lot of coding, and I know that a lot of people are trying to actually build custom GPTs. And so I want to just share with you how to get to that next level, the things that I'm doing right now that I'm learning as I go. And I really look forward to being able to, help people understand how to build these things better. There's so much more we can do with the data when you go against raw data. Anyway, I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I really do hope that you'll hey, great, somebody's watching. I love it. I do hope that you'll end up, rewatching this and catching the whole thing and feeding back information. Let me know what you want to see and what works and doesn't work for you. Hopefully that gave you some good guidance, and I look forward to talking with you soon.